Okay, a movie that Bruce and I was able to sneak in within the last several days is this movie called The Royal Hotel. It's a film by Kitty Green, who's a filmmaker, I believe the writer as well. It stars Julia Garner from Ozark, and Bruce, you've seen her in The Assistant. She's a very popular actress, award-winning actress, and of course, Jessica Henwick is also in this. They are the main characters. They play. Bruce, I think are they Canadian or I think they're American, right? They're American tourists.
I think they tell people they're Canadian because that's what you tell people when you go travel abroad because people hate Americans. So if you tell them you're Canadian, then they are more apt to treat you well.
Oh, okay. All right. So they're supposed Canadian tourists who actually travel to the Australian Outback. They're in Australia at the beginning. Jessica Henwick's character realizes that because of a credit card situation, there's no money left in their sort of account. So they need to take some kind of menial job that'll pay the bills. They find a job working tending bar at the quote the Royal Hotel. It's out in the middle of nowhere in the Australian Outback. What happens when two young, beautiful women go out into basically a mining town filled with mainly men in just this whole outback deserty area where everything is arid. It says there's a pool, but it's not really a pool. It's a big hole because there's no
It's like a
pool.
wall on the ground that used to have water in it, basically.
Spoiler alert, the Royal Hotel, the only water that's available in the Royal Hotel is probably alcohol. That's water based, but really it's a very dry too. And Eric Owens put his thumbs up on that. Yeah, it's a very dry movie, but there's a lot of things that happen because obviously the men in this movie, there's several men who actually pose as a threat to these women. And we get to see throughout the 95 plus minute narrative if these women can survive this harrowing experience in the Royal Hotel. Bruce, you know this movie. Well, you and I have both seen Wake and Fright. We have been
Right.
when Eric Holmes has the time, he doesn't have the time because like us, he's seeing so many movies every week. This is one of these things where we're encouraging Eric Holmes down the line to see Wake and Fright. We both seen Wake and Fright, that Australian Outback cult film, which is amazing. You've done me better because you've seen the documentary that this movie is inspired by. What is your thoughts? I looked on Wikipedia. It's actually inspired by that hotel. What is it, Coolgardie or something like that?
Yeah, Hotel Coolgardie. Yeah, I
Yeah,
mean, someone
which
in the CinemAddicts Facebook group had recommended that. I want to say like 2 or 3 years ago, and I had just watched it then, so I had almost forgotten about it. But yeah, I think I'll be curious to see how you respond to this because I responded to it based on kind of the real hand knowledge of sort of that situation that's depicted here. It's not the story that's depicted here, but it's the basic situation that they've got going on there.
okay. So
So
your thoughts on the Royal Hotel, but then before that, backtrack. Should people also watch the documentary as a compliment, or maybe just as a standalone?
yeah, I think either way, it goes either way. I think it's a very fascinating documentary period because there's this kind of weird thing, and I don't know if I got the wording right, but it's something like traveling work or traveling employment. They have some kind of a weird name where it's this thing where if you're traveling through Australia, you can kind of do it and then work places as you go. But in like this hotel, they pretty much just hire young single women to work in this hotel in the middle of nowhere with that's pretty much populated like 99% by miners coming out of the hills, or coming out of the mine to drink it during the night. And to the point when at one point in this movie, you see that the hotel has put up a sign just literally saying fresh meat. So the miners know there's new women coming. And as it starts, it's really great because as it starts, our two main women are coming in and it's the last night of the two previous women. And the two previous women are just drunk, laying on the ground, dancing on the bar, flashing the patrons, more drunk than the patrons on their way out the door, pretty much. And this is just kind of setting the scene. And these women that are starting in this, Hannah and Liv, that we're going to follow, really have no idea what they're getting into. They're looking at us like, oh, we're on a trip. We're kind of like cross countrying it. This is going to be a kind of a grand adventure. Hey, who knows? Let's see what this is like. It'd be really interesting to see how this movie plays for people because it sets itself up almost like a horror movie, but it doesn't quite play out like that. And I think the best way, someone else on the group, I think, described this as an anxiety movie. And I think that's a great description
Right.
And I think for me, how it really works is this, especially the Julia Garner character, Hannah. She is essentially like, imagine if you are, and probably a lot of people have been in this situation, you're like the sober person at the party. Maybe you're the designated driver, whatever. So imagine you're the sober person at the party every night. And every night, this party is on the verge of careening out of control into violence and or sexual assault. That's essentially their workplace. Oh, and by the way, they live upstairs from the bar. So, and that's essentially the situation. And what they do is they just populate it with a few bar goers that become kind of stand-ins for certain types of dudes that they kind of encounter on a more deep basis than just the average guys in the bar. So you have kind of the kind of nice sort of charming younger guy that kind of comes there and he seems like kind of a good guy. You have the guy that's kind of sullen and awkward, but wants to kind of be the protector dude, kind of wants to protect their, I don't know, honor or something. And then you have the dude who's the obvious creeper. And that's kind of your three main guys that keep reoccurring. And watching how all those three kind of subplots play out is also kind of interesting. But really, at the core of this, especially Garner is like she is your protagonist, really, honestly, throughout this thing. And I think the enjoyment of this will depend a lot on kind of what your expectation for it is. So if you're looking for kind of your blow up, revenge rape kind of drama, or if you're looking for some kind of a super hardcore, action-y, violent sort of build up, sort of say like Straw Dogs, that's not what this is. This is really a drama at heart, but it's very interesting. I kind of quite like this movie.
Hugo Weaving from The Matrix, if you have
Yeah, I
any.
didn't even know it was him until I read at the end. I was like, oh my God.
Right. He's the owner of the Royal Hotel and he's their boss who's not exactly good with paying wages to his workers or the distributors of his food and his liquor, his spirits and all that stuff. So he has his own problems. He like so many people is not afraid to actually drink and eat his own food. There is also I guess his companion who we're assuming she's been part of the Royal Hotel even when his father was alive. So they have a weird, intricate relationship. They live not at the hotel, they live in the sort of a detached trailer right outside the hotel. So Kitty Green builds up a really interesting world within the 95 minutes. But again, like Bruce was saying, please I'm not saying this is false advertisement, but you may feel it does have thriller elements. There are tense elements, but this is a nerve-wracking drama that is slow burn at parts and more analytical and possibly insightful. And all of that stuff makes me wonder about the end, which is kind of cool, which we're not going to talk about, but I still felt it was kind of out of place because that ending should have been tacked on to the thriller horror type of movie that one was to expect from the Royal Hotel. But I didn't mind it, but it's one of those things, it felt a little bit truncated to me, and it sort of cheated for me a lot of the dynamics and interplay that was going on before. Visually and aesthetically, I liked it. But anyways, Bruce, final thoughts on the Royal Hotel before ratings?
Yeah, I would just say I think it's specifically calculated to work against the stereotypical male version of this. I think that is absolutely part of the point of this movie, and I think that will also be disappointing to a lot of people as well, depending on what they're looking for. I know what you mean about the end. I honestly, it was such a small thing as far as the overall arc of the story that I was like, yeah, okay, I'm fine with that. You know what I mean? Like it was almost just like a closing title card to me in the sense like it didn't need to be there, and it didn't hurt it really for me in the overall, I guess, scheme of things. Yeah. I would wholeheartedly recommend it to people who like indie movies.
Yeah, for me, the Royal Hotel, above average drama, beautifully shot, very tense. I'd go back and watch certain sections. Again, very good performances. 4 stars for me for the Royal Hotel. What about you, Bruce?
I started at 4, and every day I sit with it, I like it a little bit more. I'm gonna go 4.5 on this one.
4.5. So it surprised you how the build up over the last several days, the momentum that you're loving it even more.
Yeah, there's just a lot of little details as I think back on it that I think are really, really good, and it's really I think it's well written and really well directed. I've seen 2 of Kitty Green's movies now, and I think I'm looking forward to anything else that she does. So
okay, so Bruce also recommends, along with Hotel, I believe Coolgardie, which was not directed by Kitty Green, but he also recommends The Assistant, which was directed by Kitty Green.
Yeah,
previous
Assistant's
movie.
great.
which also stars, I believe, what Julia Garner, right? Is that
Mm-hmm.
okay?
Yep.
Julia Garner. Okay,
This is CinemAddicts.